Hi, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Dever. In this episode, I talk with actor, artist, filmmaker, and plant-based author Cametria Hill. Cametria is a phenomenal talent who always brings a high level of intensity to her work. I've had the pleasure to work with and get to know Cametria over the past couple years. I sat down with Cametria on the beach in Santa Monica, and we had a conversation. Well, I'll tell you what time it is.
What time is it?
It's podcast time, and we're recording.
Yes.
We're here. Well, this worked out.
It did. I'm feeling this.
I'm feeling it too. I guess we'll see if this lasts in terms of not getting bothered or sun issues or anything like that. But we're down here in beautiful Santa Monica. I'm seeing you for the first time in 7 months. It's wonderful. You look amazing.
You look amazing.
You got a hat. I got a beard.
Yes.
Quarantine's been good to us both, huh?
Rugged looks good on you, I must say. Sam.
You think so?
I do. I really do.
There was a point where I like grew it, mm-hmm. and just let it. Like someone had actually given me shout out to Grayson.
Oh.
He had, because I think it was the nursery rhyme show that we did, and I was trying to grow something, but it just wasn't, like, some people were questioning it, and I remember Grayson pulled me aside and he said, "Hey man, keep letting it grow." Because he has a nice beard, so he knew what he was talking about. And I always envied people with beards.
I was going to say, I don't think I've ever seen you with facial hair until today, and it looks good on you.
I had like a short goatee, but not like this.
Yeah, some people are like either or, but like, you pull it off. You pull it off. Like right now, you kind of have like mysterious professor vibe going on right now. Like, oh yeah, he's cool. I
wore the turtleneck and a sport coat, which I almost immediately regretted initially. Like when we were walking up in Palisades Park right there, and I started dripping sweat, I'm like, Sam, you should have brought beach clothes. Like you should have worn beach clothes. You just had to wear a turtleneck.
I don't think I have anything.
No, I mean, we're good now. We're good. So how are you? Like how has life been this past 7 months?
Ooh, how much battery you have?
Yeah.
Well, oh my gosh, I feel like it would be easier if you would give me a...
Or maybe let me ask you this. What have you learned in this past 7 months? And you don't have to tell me everything, but because we were talking before this, and it's sounds like beneficial in some ways to you. Look at that. I did it again. We're still recording, so it's still going to work, but... for all those watching, yes, I have for the second time now begun a podcast without having this in, so I'm going to replug this in. Okay, we are back, and the audio's kind of louder now, but the mic is in. There's a helicopter going by. Welcome to the first stages of the Sam Dever podcast.
Love it.
I am not an audio technician.
Hold for sound,
all right,
please.
Hold for sound.
Really? Come on here.
Don't they know who we are?
Really?
Well, just now you said you had a thing for French. You didn't finish bulldogs, so I didn't know what you were talking about there.
Yes, well, French fries too, but French bulldogs, especially puppies. There was like a cute chocolatey one right. Oh, there it is, right there. They're so cute and they're so stubborn. I'm gonna control myself because we're on a time schedule. But if you see me run across there, it's because I saw a French bulldog. They made eye contact with me.
Okay, maybe after this, you can go get the bulldog's number.
Oh yes, I'll get a paw. There we go.
Well, anyway, before I forgot to plug in the microphones again, things you learned in quarantine.
Yes.
Or whatever we want to call it, shut down. At this point, who knows at this point? The world changed, that's all I know.
Life season 2 right now at this point. Jesus. What have I learned? Oh man, I feel like I had something cooler to say before the audio issue. So now I'm back on the flow.
I messed up the flow.
Yes. Oh man, I learned that I value my alone time. I know that sounds weird because a lot of people are quarantining by themselves. I happen to be in a house with 87 people. So when no one else has anywhere to go, and then you come home from work, like, oh my gosh, I just want peace and quiet, and there's someone there. Yeah, Like that's not a good thing.
Not to interrupt, but you that had to have been hard. Especially in the
Yeah.
beginning of this thing where they're saying don't get near anybody, but you're in a situation where you're living with a bunch
Yes.
of, like, how does that work? Like, I was lucky to live by myself, and I was like, no one get near me.
Yes. Which reminds me to something else that I learned, and it will answer that question. I
Okay.
learned that Ralph's delivers alcohol. So that was like the first thing I learned at the beginning of quarantine, like how easy it was.
You're a loyal customer.
Yes, in the beginning. I mean, now I'm on my beach body routine with Shanti, but yeah, that was one way to deal with, just space. It's weird, like you want to be alone but not lonely, because that's another thing too. I realized like how much like like even though I wanted my space, I guess maybe I just wanted like the community, like the actor community, for instance, like because I definitely took for granted, like before we would stress about like going to class and that type of stuff, but now I kind of miss having like this thing that I have to do like every single week, and I'm cussing about it or whatever, but just something that's keeping me structured every single week. I guess I miss that. I mean, I work, but I don't know. I miss that. I do.
I missed that with the camaraderie.
Yeah.
And also watching other people
Mm-hmm.
in class.
Yeah.
And being like just surrounded with that inspiration. 'Cause I don't know how many times, like, I'm sure you felt it too. We all did. Like, you didn't feel like going to class that night.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about Playhouse West, by the way, amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
We just
acting
assumed you knew. Yeah.
school.
Playhouse West.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember days where I'm like, oh man, like I don't, you're just, you for whatever reason, you're tired with this, but then you'd go. And not only it's something you would do, but then watching other people and then talking to other people. And like, I'd leave that place like on cloud nine, like feeling that energy. And I feel like that energy during this time we haven't had a lot of it. And I feel we're kind of trying to find that again in new ways,
Yeah, I think too, another thing that was pointed out, like, like I'm a tough girl, obviously. I mean, look at all these tattoos, right? But one thing that was pointed out to me at the beginning of I guess maybe June, July, so maybe the halfway point of this particular point of quarantine. Cause
that's right. We had a summer. I totally forgot.
Oh, God. Especially in California. Jesus. But I realized that as tough as I think I am, human contact, we were just talking about like, oh, I don't know, can we like touch or hug or whatever?
Yeah.
And I forgot about it. When you're like not in a relationship, like you don't touch often or whatever. That came out weird. And it wasn't until one of my roommates, his sister came to visit with her sons, so his nephews, and they're like 3 and 2. And we were all in the kitchen and my 87 other people that live there. And then, little kids, whatever, he was confused for a second. And so he grabbed my niece and he hugged me and he said, like, he thought it was his mom. And then he hugged me. And it was at that point that I realized that I had not been hugged for 3 months. Like I had not touched a human being for 3 months until this. And then I was like, oh, and then like I hugged her, and then it was like the cutest like 45 seconds of my life. And then he looked up at me and realized I wasn't his mother, and he was like, ah! But that 40, like I told so many people about that story. Like,
wait, so he like freaked out
when he realized I wasn't his mother. But that I told my mom about that. I told my client about that. Like I told so many people about it, and like even now, like that hug, like it was a really good ass hug. And like I guess I realized like the importance of like human contact, like that thing that we just do instinctively, but it is, I guess, what separates us as humans, if that makes any sense. And I didn't realize how important that was until that moment.
I know, it's funny you say that, because I can specifically remember my first quote unquote real contact during this. I went for the air hug thinking like that's what we were doing, and they just came up to me and it felt like I felt like a surge of energy go through my body, and it's like, it
was
like
so tingly, and I was like, wait, what is this that I feel?
kind of like as actors too, it's like for how long of a period were we not feeling stuff for a while, like
That's true.
You know, it was like we're used to digging up these emotions
twice a week, going from like the worst day of our life and the best day of our life in the same freaking week. So like, so is anyone watching anything good on Netflix?
Oh man, I got sick of I'm so sick of quarantine videos and like that. It was cool for like the first month.
Yeah,
on
I
social
learned what
media.
TikTok was. Like I don't know if it was out before quarantine, but I learned about it during quarantine, and then.
So you like your alone time?
Yeah.
You like human connection, human touch? Anything else about yourself that you learned, or about the world, or?
During quarantine, I don't know. I learned that I learned that people like will find a way out of everything, if that makes sense. Like so many, like I guess humans are resilient or like hustlers. I haven't figured out which one or whatever. And so I guess creative, like for lack of a better word, the creativity that has come through like quarantine. Like I've just seen so many new
Absolutely.
ways of doing things that I never would have thought about. For instance, like I'm scared of computers and I suck at technology and all that stuff. But I managed to throw a surprise birthday party, virtual surprise birthday party on Zoom for my mom's birthday. And
That was nice.
that was, yeah, like check out my IG once I post it. I know I'm so late because it happened in September, but I did a road trip there. All that to say that like my mom lives in Texas, and then like she has 4 brothers, and they live in different states. And this technology existed before quarantine,
Yeah.
but I never would have like. And for her, like this is a milestone birthday. I won't say what she turned, but all she cares about is family and people being together. And she wanted to do this big thing, and then life happened. And, you know, most people would have been like, well, I guess that's that or whatever. And so I was like, no, I really want to find a way to bring this birthday party to her or whatever. It's like, I'm going to try this. I don't know if it's going to work. And I ended up getting about maybe 40 family members from like 5 different states, all, yeah, on this virtual birthday party. So that's just one of, like, that's my own personal, I guess, creative, cool, innovative thing to do during this. But there's been so many other things. And so that's been inspiring, I guess, cool, creative, and just something like interesting about humans, like what we can come up with in all types of scenarios and circumstances. So yeah.
Well, to your point, well, first of all, that's a beautiful story, and you do learn like how important family and friends. And one quick thing, like this is a totally different conversation, but I think mental health's a huge issue right now for a lot of people, and I'm trying to be better at reaching out to people. Being more proactive, like, hey, you good? Like everything going good, and just having those conversations. Totally lost my thought where I was.
I was like, oh man, I gotta get my serious face.
Well,
So
then part of me,
take me somewhere.
yeah, no, part of me is like, okay, do I flip the script and get all serious real quick? But no, it sounds like one thing creatively, like I think I've learned, like. And it's been beautiful to watch a lot of people, like, you know, a lot of us were just so used to doing acting all the time. But what I've witnessed, and this is what I was going to say, like, I agree with you 100%. It is incredible how quickly people adapt. Yeah. And how quickly people, or how creative people get. And one of the best instances was when I started seeing comedians doing Zoom comedy things. Yeah. Like within like the week. Like within the week it started, I already saw them like, hey, we're doing I'm like, that's how quickly. Yeah. So people find a way to do stuff, you know.
Resilience, man.
Where are you at acting wise right now?
Like skill set? Well, because I've been doubting myself a lot during quarantine. That depends on the day, honey.
I guess what have you is there anything you've found out about yourself through acting during this time, even though we haven't been like full blown doing acting? Is there something now like, and maybe we don't even know until we actually get fully in it again. Have you been doing anything in particular? I know you said you've been auditioning.
Yeah, I've been auditioning a lot, which is a blessing, to still have something that I'm working towards, even in the midst of all this uncertainty. I've been like giving, through that, I guess, talking about stuff we learned, I realized that I suck at self-tape auditions. So that's something that I learned during quarantine, and like me personally needing to adapt and get over my fears of technology because I suck. Like I've just learned how to do attachments on emails like a year ago. Like that's how bad my skills are. Um, so I learned that I need, like, I guess
You
being
never had attached a picture to an email or anything?
it's a complicated story.
I'm
I
not
know.
trying to put you on the spot.
I'm really like, well, okay, maybe a year and a half ago, like not more than 2018. I'm really that bad. Ask Richard. Ask Richard. I suck. Like my mom helps me on computer stuff. That's how bad it is. Like that's the truth. I'm not even lying. But all that to say, like recognize, like being okay with what you don't know, I guess being humbled, that's something that I learned a lot during this quarantine, like really being humbled. So to bring that back to acting, with accepting the new stage where auditioning is now, most stuff is self-tapes and stuff like that. I've been like creating self projects with friends to just work on keeping that muscle going, and learning how to get better, since that's pretty much the new reality right now, self tapes and auditioning and that kind of stuff. So I've been doing practice ones in addition to the wonderful work that my agent's been getting me.
And congratulations on that, by the way.
Yes. Thank you. Which, again, like, if I can say this to, I don't know who's going to watch this, hopefully everyone, like, whatever the circumstances, you could you can find an agent during quarantine. Like, you can make movies during quarantine. Like, don't let, as long as there is breath in your body, like, you can find a way to make stuff happen.
That's beautiful what you just said.
It's true.
Actually, that's gonna be a clip right there.
Yes. Let me say it again without moving around so much.
Okay, say that again.
As long as there is breath in your body, you could find a way to make that happen. And see.
There's gonna be a meme of Cametria Hill on there, and it's gonna have that quote.
Yes.
Under there. Are you accepting your Oscar one day?
Yes. Like, no, for real though. And like I do. This is something that like has just been an idea that I've had off and on probably since 2014. But I should tag more pictures with this. I'm having brain fog. Anyway. We look up to all these different people who have certain statuses, or, you know, like whether it's LeBron James or whoever the Oscar winner is of this year or whatever. And they could say the same, for lack of a better word, shit that like our teachers or our family members say, but because it comes from those people, their words hold, you know, more merit to us. And so one thing that I've been trying to do personally, like I call it like be your own hero, and I used to tag a lot of pictures like the Be Your Own Hero project, because I wanted to inspire people to do that for themselves in their own lives. And to give an example of that, like I've learned that kind of resilience of like what I can physically and emotionally do. Like I did like a crazy road trip a few weeks ago, and I drove 11 hours in 2 consecutive days driving from here to Texas. And at my halfway point, because I'm on this beach body program or whatever, like I have to work out a certain amount of days, and I like drove 11 miles, but I still knew I had to get that workout in. So I checked into my hotel, and I still did a workout at like 12:30 in the morning after driving, and I was just like, what the fuck? And so I posted about it, and it wasn't to be like, oh, I'm this special thing, but it's more like, you can be your own hero too, and you can inspire yourself. And then if you did it that one day, because I knew, oh gosh, I got to do the same thing tomorrow, and I did do it, you know, that next day too. And just like, I guess, like Kobe called it the Mamba Mentality or whatever, but like I've just learned more and more like how, like, it's not, physical strength is great and all that, but like it is true, like if you're mental, yes, if you can really tell yourself that there's no way that you can't do this thing, then there's no way that you can not do that, if that made any sense.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
No, I love that. Well,
like I went on a tangent, but
that's beautiful. This is like,
I'm sorry, I'm long-winded, and this is a great nitro cold brew.
You got an extra? Because geez, you got you coming up with some gems. No, you're right. Like, well, first of all, I've really loved seeing like how much into fitness you've been going. Because we can get into, because I know you know about the food end of everything.
Oh, yeah.
But I think consistency is the key. I think it's so easy for people to make excuses. And I'll admit, during this time, it's really easy to go, well, no one's doing anything right now, so nothing really to do. It's like there's always something you can do.
Yeah.
And You know,
Always.
and when it comes to, I mean, I know when it comes to food, like I'm obsessed. Like I've brought food on planes. I've brought food. If I knew I wouldn't have access to the food I wanted, I'm putting it in Ziploc bags and throwing it in my. You can still do it. Do it. So I mean, that makes me smile when you said you got that in on the road like that. Because once you skip one day of something like working out or something, it's very easy to go, well, I skipped that day, so let me just skip this day. And, oh, well, we'll start when I get back. And
I've made it non-negotiable. Like, and I think if memory serves me right, I feel like it was something like I love Will Smith. Just like I felt just as a human being, his mentality is just phenomenal. And he said something along like those lines, like about something being non-negotiable and how he doesn't think he's the most talented person or whatever, but there will be no, like his work ethic is insane, and there's nobody that will work harder than him when the other guy's eating. You know the whole quote: when the other guy's eating, he's working, and when the other guy's sleeping, he's working. That type of. And when you just set it in your mind that this is non-negotiable, because I don't enjoy exercising, but I feel like the baddest. Sorry, Mama, if you see this, bitch in the world when I do exercise. It's because of that, when it's that non-negotiable thing, you just have it and it's just a part of who you are and your routine. And
yeah, well, no, it just makes you feel so good. And then going with the Will Smith, I love when he said, I don't have a plan B because plan B takes away from plan A. Yeah. He's like, if you're already planning it, well, if this doesn't work out, plan B, you've already kind of submitted a little bit of everything. So I love the non-negotiable thing.
That's what it is.
If you haven't read it, Tim Grover's book, Relentless.
I'll put it in my
he talks about, he trained Kobe and Michael, Dwayne Wade, and he talks about the Mamba mentality. And
relentless.
That's basically, these guys were relentless. They were just is non-negotiable. I think that's a beautiful way of summing it up. Like, no, this is happening.
Yeah, this is what it is. This is your lot in life. And you think about it too, like I kind of equate it to, I don't know if this is hopefully not offensive, but just like if someone has like, let's say a disability or something like that, and then they have a certain way that they're doing something because that's their life. You know what I mean? Like that's the way that they have to do it. It's like that's just a part of their routine, whatever that thing is. And so in that same kind of way, it's just like I know the importance of fitness. It's not like, oh, okay, like I got to this point and then it's like, okay, I'm good the rest of life. Like, no, if you want to perform a certain way and if you want your life to be a certain thing, like that just, this is what your life looks like now. You know what I mean? And so it's like, that's what it is.
You've dropped so many gems already. Like, no, that's so right. Like this is what your life looks. This is how we do it now. Like this is what you want, this is what you got to do. You know?
Yeah.
The one thing about these podcasts, I find is when we get talking, that's when like it really starts to generate. Oh, this is what. You're such an interesting person to me, and I've had the privilege to get to know you
I appreciate that.
These past couple years, and just seeing and work with you. But you talking about mentality, and we were talking as we were walking down to. I don't know if this music's gonna play. I always wanted to do. I envy the people on the bikes. That do that, because sometimes I'm like, I used to be like, get out of the way. I'm trying to get to the beach, but I'm like, they're having so much fun. Maybe I want to do that too and play some music.
No, now that you pointed it out, I've never actually ridden like leisurely. Like I only like in New York, that was my mode of transportation or a job, like bike messenger. I've never actually ridden for pleasure before.
So wait, you actually just rode, and it's funny you said New York because that's what I was transitioning to.
Oh, funny.
You've never just ridden a bike to ride a bike. It was always like, oh, this is my transportation.
Yeah, or a job. Like I've had like 3, like between I did Postmates, and then I had an actual just bike messenger. I won't say that company because they sucked. But no, I don't think I've ever. I did. No, that wasn't. Someone made me do it. I did like a bike race like through 5 different boroughs. I guess for some people that's pleasure, but it was hard, those bridges. So that wasn't even pleasure. It was because someone made me do it.
That's what. So kind of tying this into 2 things here. Because you're a person, when you tell me your story, and I'm sure there's a lot of your story I still don't know, but I think resilience, perseverance,
kind of what you said, like that Mamba mentality, doing what you got to do. And then coming from New York, 'cause you came, how long did you live in New York for?
Oh man, almost. How can I say this without giving away my age?
For a little while. I mean, you lived there for a minute.
You know, like 5 times 3. You know, like whatever. Like, you know, get a calculator.
Let them figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, there've been a few presidents while I was there. There were a few.
And what was that like? I mean, that's one experience which I don't know if I'll ever get to have now with what's happened. But you got the true New York City experience. Like, what was that like?
Oy. Ooh.
Could you maybe talk about too, like...
Yeah, censor me because I can go all over the place.
Yeah, like maybe just like what was New York like, maybe in kind of comparison to LA here, and then I know you always haven't had easy times either, and like pushing through those, you know?
That was perfect because that's actually where I was going to go. I would have just taken the long way around.
The wheel's yours. The wheel's yours.
That's one thing I will say. Like I was a teenager when I moved there, and so a lot of life happened there. And going there to here, I wouldn't have had it any other way. If like I learned grit, hustle. You were talking about resilience. Like I mean, I've went through so many different stages of life and finances and rock bottoms and really high highs and like don't know what tomorrow's gonna look like days or whatever. And just going through all that while going through those different milestones in life, or being a teenager to, you know, a young adult to still less young of an adult, but still, you know what I mean? Like learning and figuring it out and still having a dream and a goal through despite of, I guess, was an important lesson that I wouldn't have learned any other place than New York. Like it is true what they say, like if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And I used to take that as like making it, like, oh, you need to have like a certain amount of money, or people need to know your name, or this and this and that. But it's like, if you can get through what this city's going to throw at you, the self-doubt, the high cost of rent or whatever, and still not being bitter, still being a good person despite of the different things you encounter. I mean, the rats, like, which is real, like, and you will have one, I guarantee. No matter where you live in New York, no matter how clean your place is, you will have at least 1 to 3 mice in your apartment, and no matter where. And it's okay. It says the only time I didn't have one is when I lived in the Upper West Side, I'll say. But for 9 months, I didn't have a mouse. But just that resilience and learning who you are and being okay with being a weirdo and being unique and just finding whatever your yous are was so important for me, being like an insecure person and not knowing who I was when I got to New York, that if I would have came straight to LA from Texas, where I was born, I don't know if I would have made it here, you know, because there's a lot. I mean, the beach is beautiful and stuff like that, but there are a lot of different people here, and there are people with different intentions and different goals and different personalities. And you could take that personally, or especially like us as actors, we're people that feel a lot, and, you know, and you could, like, that could beat you down a certain way if this person is treating you one way this way, or if you find out someone has ulterior motives, or whatever the case may be. But going through such a rough city and a beautiful city, and then coming here was probably like, I've lived 20 lifetimes in that amount of time. So yeah, that hustle, that drive, and just finding a way out of no way, to where it's like, I don't care yet. Yes, the city is literally on fire. Sometimes we have wildfires, but it's just like what I said earlier with that breath, like, I'm okay until I, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm okay. I've been through all that. There's nothing that I can't do here.
I said, like, for those of us that were used to struggling financially anyway, before the pandemic, like, I kind of felt prepared. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know the drill.
Exactly. It's like, okay, so this is what I have, $33. Okay, exactly. This is what I can get at Trader Joe's.
Exactly.
And it's going to be $27.86. Yes, and then there's enough for 1.5 gallons of gas if I get it on La Brea at the Arco, because theirs is going to be, you know. But it's just like, I learned that in New York, and I don't know if I would have gotten that, you know. And then just the diversity of people, like, it really, I don't know. Like, that's one thing. You're forced, like here everything is so spread out, right?
Mhm.
So there you're forced to be like your mode of transportation. Almost everyone does public transportation, and you're built up, so you're on top of different people. So your building might have 5 different regions of the world in that one building. So you're just exposed to so many, different things. It gives you so much life and culture in a short amount of time, I feel.
Mm.
And like it was a cultural history, anthropological, I said that word right, lesson, that just doesn't compare. Like I know LA has but it's so spread out.
Yeah.
And I feel like that growth was something that I will always be grateful, even with all the struggles that I had living in New York.
Mm. And you said something when we were walking down here. We were talking about, especially times like now, people having to leave certain areas and leave places, and we were talking about that breaking point, like being forced to leave somewhere,
Yes.
and then just leaving somewhere because you thought you had to leave somewhere, and that's kind of how it's like being in bigger cities right now. You're like, shoot, do I need to be here as the world's burning down? Like, or would it be better off in a place with not as many people and this, that, and the other? But like, I love what you said with, if you got a breath, you're still in. And another way I've put it to myself before, I'm like, I'm still in the game. That's kind of how I've been viewing things. And I've viewed it in the past before, like, I'm still here.
You're still here.
I'm still doing shit. Like, we're doing this. Like, it's like,
yes,
don't get caught in the head. Do what you can do and make it. Like you said, you got your agent. I think that's freaking awesome during this time. Like, that's a very hard thing to do, and you did it during very tough times.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like, I guess that's another thing learning from being in New York is just like, in addition to that toughness, but also in that grit, I guess, I don't know if this would be considered like cost risk analysis or whatever the case may be, but like, yes, my life would be much more cushier and my mom would be much more happier. Like, I know I could go to Texas at any day, you know what I mean? And like, not have to worry about rent or food and all this kind of stuff, and have someone who is my number one fan and adores me and thinks I'm so special. Like, yeah. But it's like this thing that's inside of me is here, and like it's easier to do here, like the outside circumstances, aren't, the cushiest or whatever, but I'm here and this is this epicenter for what I want to do.
Right.
And it's like I've been, what's 10 degrees under rock bottom, because I've been there. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm not there. Like, the difference between comfort and that easier, or just like, are you just really being you know what I mean? Like, until Garcetti knocks on my door, it's like there is nothing left for you in LA.
You've got to leave.
You've got to leave. But it's like, if I'm choosing to go for cushy and comfort or whatever, then it's like, that's what I mean when I say about, like, to go back to the New York, about making it anywhere. Like, I'm still here, and it's so much harder to, if you're not here, to like get back than if you're already here. Like, you can figure out where you go. Like, there are parking lots in LA. Like, if you have a car, you're good. You have somewhere to live, you have transportation, you can sleep in there, you can do a lot of stuff in the car. Let me tell you, you know what I mean? And there's like safe parking lots. Like, if it came down to, you have the beach. Like, I've slept in Central Park before, I've been housing deprived in cold temperatures, like, there's all this here. And like, so, I think maybe it was Chris who said it. Like, so many actors, they get so close and they don't make it because they take themselves out of the game. You know what I mean? It's like, the game is going to have to like throw the pieces at me, shuffle up and say new dealer before I actually leave. Like, that's when I know, okay, I've literally given everything that I have. And it's like, something's telling me like, okay, like, no. But I feel like,
I love that. And shout out to Chris Levy.
Yes, Chris Levy.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is our first time really catching up, kind of. Like, really, I know it was a busy summer for you, definitely, here in Los Angeles. I know you were very involved and switching, kind of transitioning to another thing going on in the city, just with the protests and all the movements and everything. I was kind of just curious, you could maybe take me through that, or something
of course
that you've learned through that experience, because that was probably
it's
a
interesting.
life-altering experience for many people as well, outside of a pandemic that was
Right?
going on.
That's
You know what I mean? It was like a double whammy. It was like
like season 2020 of Earth is just like the best season ever. Like whoever's up there watching this season, it's just like, wow, this season is lit. Like, let me tell you, like, yes, in the midst of all, yeah, it's interesting because like I've always been, oh man, condense this because I can go all day,
Right.
but I've always been a very like politically astute, active person since I was like 8 or 9 years old. Like that was the year that I went to the Republican National Convention. I was 9 years old. Like I've been like involved in this stuff, and like it's always been like my first major protest was in 2004. Outside of Madison Square Garden, protesting when George Bush, they had the convention there at Madison Square Garden. And that was like right in the height of the Iraq War and all that stuff. And I did like a die-in there, blah, 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 to Occupy Wall Street in '09 and all that. So where we are now. And they've always been these separate passions. Like I've always had this really, really like heavy art passion and drive, like, because also my whole entire life I've been like performing LSO since I can remember 4 years old, whatever. And also this, and they've always, again, been two life forms. And when this happened at the beginning of quarantine, I felt like I was hit in a different way because I feel like, so it was interesting because a lot of people were reaching out to me in the beginning of quarantine, like my friends, and like that's when it like I felt some type of way about it because I was like, why is everyone like reaching? Like first I was like, oh wow, like everyone's like concerned to see how am I doing, so everyone's reaching out to me. And then I was like, why is everyone just reaching out to me? like I've been Black this whole time. Like this has been my whole life. Like I have story. Like I've been accused of stealing at stores when I was a teenager. Like so many different life things. And then I was like, am I everyone's only Black friend? So I went through a whole cycle of everything in the beginning of this. And then I felt just so emotionally gutted to where art felt guilty to me. And I feel like there's no, how can I possibly worry about if I'm getting this damn accent right if like I could die or like any of my nephews can die at any moment. I mean, this has always been the thing, but it's magnified right now because we all saw it for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And everyone else now that don't share the skin as I do are also feeling it too, you know? So it was like, so I went on like a 2-week or 3-week, which for an acting nerd is a lot of time of not reading an acting book or working on something. Like
just purely focusing.
Yeah, and it was weird because I felt like, am I ever gonna get back to this art? But then I was like, I felt selfish wanting to do that when like I knew so many different people were hurting. So it was a lot, and it actually took me doing a monologue from American Son, which like in there, like which is actually a play I wanted to do before all this happened, ironically. But it's kind of that premise is like I have a mixed, I'm saying it like it's my thing. My character has a mixed race son. He's Black and white, and then he's missing, and you know whatever police station, like they don't know what happened. So he ends up being, I'm spoiling this play, but a victim of police brutality. But it fit in alignment with what's going on. But I guess it was my bridge to being okay. And then I started thinking about like James Baldwin and all these other artists who like, that's what we do. We're supposed to document the times that we're in, you know, all the paintings in the museums before there were photographs and stuff like that. So it is okay, you know, to express this, and it's not being vain or anything like that. It's like, we have a calling, like this art, like we're talking about, like we could have these cushy lives in our respective homes, but there's something that's keeping us here. So it's our duty almost to, so like that was my way of getting back in it. But now back in terms of just the politically speaking, and I would be upset if this wasn't like Prince, but since Prince is my long lost baby daddy, I want to be okay.
Like this is like I'll always cherish this moment as you're dropping gems, and we're in Santa Monica, and the
Yes.
guy just looks so happy, man. Like
Yes, Erotic City. Yeah.
Rock City's one of my favorites. Like, yeah, it's like that's.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Serendipity. I love me some Prince.
I
That's the only posters I have on my wall of Prince
Oh,
right now.
I totally, just to interject real quick, I
Yeah.
completely, and I actually I talked about this in a video I was doing, but I too stepped away from like actively doing stuff, and like I learned, I go, I'm just going to try to live.
Yeah.
I'm just going to try to live, and I realized just living, nothing's wrong with that, but I feel like I was wasting potential.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there are, as artists, there are certain skill sets you have, there are certain abilities you have, and it's like, what are you going to do with that, man? You're just going to like not use it and just die, and then you're never going to, you know? As I felt like I needed to quote unquote chip in. I'm like, in me doing this podcast was like something like, look, I wanted to do this. You have the ability to do it, put it together and do it. Like, if not, you're just going to not.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why not? Why not? We're here.
So you went through, and it's probably important. You probably learned a lot by just focusing on the protests and things of that, but then you could still feel that fire.
Yeah.
For the art.
Yeah. It was, I forgot, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, Prince, thanks, Prince.
Yes. See, he always does this, make me lose my head.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a journey, like artistically and even just as a person too. I learned like just a lot about who I am and just where I fit in all this, and just not taking things for granted. Like, we all assume that going out, like right now, not to jinx anything, but we just take coming home safely for granted. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, like thinking about like Elijah McClain, for instance, he was just going to the store that day, and I can't get too deep into that because I will get emotional, but he was just going to the store, what I mean, 23 years old or 22, and he never came home, so it's like the enormity of like, yes, I spent all these years in acting and all these other stuff, and just like anybody could not care or not know me as a person and see this exterior for whatever reason in America that's scary to some people. And then it's just like, none of that matters. No one would care that I'm someone's daughter, that I mean something to these specific people, So that was a lot. And so that was something else like I went through, and just like a range: anger, sadness, hopelessness. I started out hopeless, to be honest, like those first few days with George Floyd. I purposely didn't watch the video until I couldn't not watch it, and I had to, and like I physically like could not get out of the bed for 3 days, and I've never, because again, like I was saying to when I was talking about friends, like I've been black this whole time, and I've known, especially growing up in tech, and I've had my own experiences with cops, lots of them, and I knew all this, but this one was different, and it felt different, and then I felt hopeless because of it being on tape, nothing happening. And it wasn't until I went to those first protests. I was on Melrose in Fairfax, like close to where the CBS is, and seeing like, it was just insane, and cop cars on fire. I'm right there, like just a lot of different things. And I remember seeing this car go by, and like people were stopped, like, because again, I've protested for 15 years. Like I literally slept at Occupy. I lived there in Zuccotti Park for 3 months. Lived there, did not leave. I literally lived there. Yeah. I'll tell that story later. But I literally
I'll
lived
be in part 2.
Exactly. I literally lived there. But so I felt hopeless, and then I went to this particular the first days of the protests here in LA, and this like people stopped in their cars, like going towards the Beverly Center, Beverly Hills, stopped and started blowing, and then there's this one car drove by. And there was these 2 little kids on top, and they were like 5 or 6, and they were like screaming like this justice or whatever. And I was just like, oh my God. And I just started like bawling my eyes out. And I was just like, I don't feel hopeless. I feel hopeful. I was like, I didn't know any of this stuff when I was 5 or 6 years old. So like the passion, I was like, these are like future like leaders, you know what I mean? The fact that these little kids, I don't know if they knew what they were doing at that moment or whatever, but like, I guess I felt comfort in like a little kid's eyes, if that made sense. And it made me kind of turn what I was feeling inside like around, because I really felt like hopeless. Like this is just gonna keep happening. Like there's nothing I can do. And then just seeing the passion in these little kids' eyes and seeing them screaming, sitting on top of a car, it really like it took me like out of, I guess, what I was feeling. And then I went to anger with Breonna Taylor. Like I went through a whole bunch of range of shit, but but um, but I didn't feel hopeless anymore. I felt powerful. Like everything just went. They were all like, I guess, emotions of dominance after that. Whether it was anger or power or hopeful, it was still a position of not being, yeah, I guess, weak or vulnerable or whatever. The different emotions, later emotions that I felt.
It was inspiring.
Yeah. Oh, that's the easier way to say it.
Inspiring.
Yeah, better word.
I said this in the first podcast I did with my guy KC, and KC's a black man, and he's always one that's. I like talking, like, especially when the things this summer and everything started going down. I like going to people I know.
Yeah, of course.
You know, people like I can really, they're going to tell it to me straight. And I said this before in the podcast, but one thing I've really hit home for me the hardest was, I guess it was a couple things. It was like when you just said, I've been black this whole time. You know, but it's like, to me, it's like, well, my friends are my friends. Like, oh, there's Cametria and there's KC and there's blah, blah, blah. And you don't think of it like that, but then like you realize like something horrible's going on here. And then it kind of hits you, like you kind of like look back and like, man, I never really kind of thought of it like that. Like maybe they are really uncomfortable in certain situations. Maybe they are going through a lot, but maybe I don't think twice about it. I could talk forever on that, but like kind of developing more empathy, but then too realizing that, and I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but this is for right now, like I can never truly understand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I will never understand what it's like, you know, when the police are behind me, I'm just thinking, oh, I really don't want to pay a ticket right now. Like, oh, I got to get to wherever, you know, blah, blah, blah. But maybe you're thinking something different.
Oh, yeah.
And for genuine reasons. So I guess that's where I'm at, is like, and I guess what I'm leading to, and I'm sure we could do a whole other podcast on this complete topic, but I asked KC what it's like being a black man in America. So I guess I'll ask you, what is it like being a black woman in America or the United States? Or,
oh, jeez, yeah.
And you can you don't have to answer that in that way, but like if there's any like maybe perspective you could maybe share.
I mean, it's a mind pluck, substitute the F or whatever. So I don't remember like who said the quote. I don't know if I always mess up his name. I don't know if it's Tennessee Coates, whatever. I'm just gonna say, being a black woman in America, the quote has something along the lines of loving a country that doesn't love you back, and it's like we've given so much to this country, but like we're aware, and sometimes we forget because of various progress and things like that and more visibility. And it's not until like these type of situations, whether it's Breonna Taylor or whatever, that it doesn't matter. Like, you know, how I'm perceived or my benefit of the doubt is not the same as yours. You know what I mean? And it's not till those situations happen that we're reminded of that. And like a small, quick example of this is the road trip that I just took, and I drove by myself, solo woman, from here to Texas. And I went to AutoZone before I left, and I got like a little keychain of like pepper spray and a hunter's knife. You know, like, because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to need to sleep in my car at a truck stop, you know, protection, blah, blah, blah. As soon as I left LA and crossed into Arizona, and I was like, oh gosh, I'm in like Maricopa County and like all this stuff like that. And like, I remember like the sheriff there who was insane, hated immigrants, whatever. And I just start seeing this every single stop, highway patrol, like for stretches and stretches of time, just sitting there waiting to get. So I was going 5 below the speed limit, like for, you know, most of my trip. And I had that, and I went on this trip. I left here August 28th. So I had that, the bag from AutoZone, and I was going to open it and put it in my thing, and then I realized I don't know what I'm more scared of. Like, what are the odds of me being at a truck stop and some, vagabond or whoever, may rob me and kill me or try to kill me, and so I need this for protection? Or am I going to get pulled over because someone sees me in this nice car with California plates in some small town in New Mexico or West Texas or Arizona, and then they shoot me first and then be like, well, there was a knife in this car, and so whatever. And because of that, I didn't open it. And to this day, what's today's date? October 16th? 17th.
Yeah.
I have no concept of time. It's in my door right now. I can show you. It's still in the plastic bag. And I was talking to my mom, and I was like, I was more afraid of, because I went through Border Patrol, and I remember I was so scared. I was like, wait, the fuck? You're born in America. But I was so scared going through border, because I had to go when I got to a certain part in Texas by by El Paso. I had to go through Border Patrol, and I was so afraid of them, which is my right to have this knife. But the smallest, like Jacob Blake is a prime example of this. He was stopping a fight, and they shot him in the back 6 times, and then they said that there was a knife in that car, but he was walking away. But it doesn't matter if I give any single justification, but that's where my mind was. And it's like, that's that reminder. It doesn't matter. I could be smart or articulate or whatever, but I'm still in this skin. So this year was a reminder that it can be any little thing could just end my life and ruin my mom's life forever, or you know what I mean? And so it's like that juxtaposition, but at the same time, it's like, Black women got a lot of flavor, you know what I mean? And like there's so much strength that we have and we project, so it's like that toss up. And then like, I don't know, like, where else would I go? Like, there's that too. Like, I have culture, I have heritage, I have roots here, I have people here. I don't know what my language is. I don't know what your background is, but you could find out whether it's Scottish or Irish or German or whatever. I have no idea. I could maybe do an Ancestry.com test, but I don't know where my lineage is from. So it's like, this is my home, even if I have been treated sometimes as an unwanted guest. And so that's what it's like. If that's like, I don't know, an easy...
No, man, that really just blew my mind with what you said. Like, the fact that something that is your right, you have it in your mind, well, I know that's my right on paper, but because I'm this appearance, I have to think of other things too, because...
That was more scarier to me, getting the police than somebody trying to rob me. And I watch a lot of forensic files, so my mind goes to some dark fucking places. I do. But I was like, well, I'm going to take my chance of someone maybe trying to jump me at a truck station that I may have to sleep at than like this police officer not liking the way that I look in this nice car, pulling me over and be like, well, we shot her, but look, there was this knife in here. Even if it's in the package with the receipt and all that.
I never thought of, no, that you really, thank you for sharing that. And I know this could be we're finding the sun's going to be going down here.
Sure.
One maybe other question about it is your opinion, like what,
Sure.
I know there's a million things that need to be done, but like, what do you think would help the most right now in terms of like us getting past some of these issues and racism in general, maybe, or I don't know. I mean, I guess it's an open-ended question. Like maybe kind of from your point of view, like
I'll say two.
What could be a solution?
Things. I think maybe the first is going to sound weird, but one is normalizing Black, and that may sound silly, but think about how many instances just this year alone where Black people have just been being them, and the police have been called. That's where the term Karen has been coming up. Black people just living their lives and being like a black bird watcher in Central Park got the police called on it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But granted, I don't know any black bird watchers either. But the point is that, like, we do all kinds of shit. Like, you know what I mean?
There's nothing wrong with watching birds. It's anyone can do that.
Exactly. Yeah. And like more visibility in that kind of way. Like, and I will say, Chadwick Boseman, who, God rest his soul,
Rest in
and
peace.
I did have the fortune of meeting him before in
Wow.
life. But he was talking about, like, we have the black version of this, and like that was one big thing with Black Panther. They got that budget, so for the first time, like, this was just this great movie that just happened to be an all black cast. But so many times in life, there's the black version of this or the black version of that, and it's never as good, quote unquote. It might be, but visually, it's not seen as good, or acting wise, or whatever, or maybe they didn't get the budget for it or whatever. So having more visibility of things, and they just happen to be black. One example is Lovecraft Country. I've just got into that show, and I've never seen anything like that. It's like this weird, it's its own genre, but it's somewhat horror, this and that. But it's not something that you're used to. Like, that could have easily have been, well, it couldn't be Jim Crow era because it wouldn't make sense for a white guy. But the point is that story, it's just a human story with black skin. So all that to say, more visibility of black people, just a day in the life of, I think will have, because that's another, like, to go back to what I was saying earlier about why is everyone reaching out to me? Am I their only black friend? That is something that I've been in a lot of circles in LA where I have been the only black person there. Which is fine. I'm used to, like, that's one thing black people are used to being. Not a lot of white people have been in spaces where they're the only white person there. You know what I mean? But black, like, that's always the thing, Okay. So just normalizing that, like, I think even though having fears of the other is, to me, irrational, having that fear of the other, but some people do, because for whatever reason, maybe, some other races might not know a lot of black people, for instance, or whatever. It just could be from where you're from or whatever. So normalizing just the black experience is just a human experience. I think, like people that watch a lot of Fox News, for instance, and think all these other things, seeing us just live will, I think, make people realize that we're not here, like, we're just people too. We just are more melanated. And then the way that we see policing, I would say, is the other thing. Like, I think, like, defund the police, I know, like, that term is, like, taken, there's different, like, spectrums of
It's complicated.
It's complicated, but the bigger issue is, like, they used to be called peace officers, you know what I mean? Like, there's so much shit that they're doing that's not in their wheelhouse. It's like a doctor has his specific job. Like, a doctor is not going to be in the waiting room, like, teaching the kids of that patient how to read because that patient's in the hospital. They have their one job. And so police come to different situations that are some things are above their pay grade, that they should not be on. But it's like that one expression of, like, the only tool that you have is a hammer, everything's going to look like a nail. You know what I mean? They handle so many different things. And I think if the whole approach to that and how they just need better training, first of all. And I think that having other systems and other remedies for issues that don't always have to involve force, I think will take some of that heat, I guess, away, because
maybe less misfortunes.
Exactly. Yeah, because we're seeing, like, they have military equipment and then they're seeing everyone as an enemy. They're shooting first, questions later.
Because the police do have their place, obviously.
Yeah.
And things. But, like, what you're saying, if everything's if all you have is a hammer and everything on the side, that maybe find some alternative ways of handling some of these situations.
Yeah, so, like, they need to have de-escalating training, you know what I mean? There's so many other remedies and ways of handling stuff, and, I feel like they're trained to think that everyone is out to get them, everyone's out to kill them. It's funny because I'm actually working on a cop character right now. I'm doing cops right now in Spoon River.
Oh, so you're doing a Spoon River?
So that paranoia of everything outside of
that's an interesting thing to work on right now.
Yeah, let me tell you.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm learning about not judging your characters, because the last thing I want to be is a freaking cop, especially the experiences I've had this summer with cops, being at protests. I got arrested at a protest. I got roughed up by cops, like, so much shit, and now I'm playing one. But
well, if you needed some material for your acting,
right? Life.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that and being open. And like I said, we could do an entire podcast just on this. Losing light here, but this is amazing. I wouldn't have wanted to do this any other way.
Yes, this is beautiful.
I think you look amazing, by the way. Like, you just have a glow about. I think it's the hat.
Thank you.
But
well, you know,
you have just you have great energy. I'm so glad that this time for you has been productive, and it's been a great thing for you in your life. And I look forward to working again with you soon
same.
on something as we move forward here. And I know there's other stuff you do. I mean, you're a vegan chef. You have a cookbook.
I dabble.
You dabble. So where can people find you if they're going to look you up and get a hold of you? Or
so you can find me on the IG, the gram, I think that's what the kids are calling it, or Insta, depending on which millennial bracket you fall in.
Yeah, the good old gram.
But whichever IG, Insta Greasy.
Insta Greasy.
Right now, my name is Candid_Campsta. So like Candid Campsta, Camsta. But I might change it to the real Cametria Hill by the time this airs. So which one of the two? Right now it's Candid_Campsta. But it might be the real.
We'll put it in the description. Yeah.
Yeah, and Facebook, Cam the Veg, Camtha, Veg.
Name of your vegan cookbook?
My book, if you are so inclined to want to know more about plant-based eating and support a sister during quarantine, you can find my book on Amazon. Don't hate me, guys. And it's called A Southern Girl's Guide to Plant-Based Eating. I don't know where I should be looking to start here. A Southern Girl's Guide to Plant-Based Eating. A Southern Girl's Guide to Plant-Based Eating on Amazon. Or you can just Google Cametria Hill, and that's Cametria.
All right.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
My phone number, only the single people.
Oh, we didn't get into any of that. We didn't get into any of
good
that.
thing the sun went down. Lord, I made it without crying.
Look forward to we'll talk dating the next segment, the next time you're on.
We'll do a speed.
And I don't know if it's the ISO on my camera or what, but it got dark fast out here.
It did.
Wasn't it bright and sunny when we started? Like,
really?
Maybe that's our cue to get out of here. But Cametria, thank you so much.
Thank you,
it's beautiful
Sam.
to see you.
Likewise.
Love you. Looking forward
to. We can do a real hug. We just don't want to be judged.
Yeah. Hug you as soon as this is over. I've been doing all the. Kind of awkward shaking your hand, and it's kind of awkward to stand up and go.
Right?
We'll do that afterwards. But great to see you. I'm so glad that I got to connect with you, and I look forward to seeing what's coming from you, because you're a super talented actor. I'll just say that. I mean, we didn't talk too much, but I'll say it for you.
I appreciate it.
I've watched you on stage before, and just in complete awe of your talent. So I mean, I love what you say about this is where I need to be. Like, keep doing it.
Thank you, Sam.
Keep doing it.
Woo! I made it without crying. I almost barely. No, I appreciate it. You know, as actors, we go, self-doubt, and I went through a lot of that during this. So to hear you, especially you being someone that I am a fan of, and this guy does an amazing British accent, by the way.
Mine's a little bit rusty. I'm probably going to have to.
It's a little bit rusty. Oh,
it's a little bit rusty.
Oh, no. I have to do another one with accents,
Ooh, that's an idea.
But seriously, I admire you too, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. Seriously, you're always thinking about me, and I appreciate it.
All right, my friend.
And I miss you.
I miss you too, and we'll not wait 7 months to see each other next time.
Yes, we'll bring some sanitizer and mask, and we'll hang out. Get you CDC, we'll do it.
And now we thought we were going to see a sunset, but it looks like we are just going to get the lights turned on us here in Santa Monica. So, signing off. Namaste.